Hello everyone. So this is session 5. The most important topic of computer networks is OSI layers. So we all hear about the OSI layers. So in this session, we are going to see about how many layers are there, what is the purpose, how it is represented. So those things we are going to see in OSI layer. So totally we have here 7 layers. So the first layer is physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and finally application layer. First, we will see about this layer in short manner based on the word. So the name of this first layer is physical layer. What is physical? The real time. So real time, in physically, we can see that. So those things or will be available in physical layer. So what are the physical devices we are using in day-to-day life? In computer networks, we are using different types of devices. Either it may be the PC, laptop, mobile phone, tab, so printer, scanner, many devices we are using it. And to connect those devices, we are using different types of physical media, Ethernet cable, and some of the pen drive we are using, Bluetooth we are using. So whatever the devices, physical devices we are using for communicating some information from one place to another is called physical layer. So here your data will be in the format of unstructured raw data. So that unstructured raw data will be transmitted from one place to another place using the physical media. So that is the physical layer. And the next one is data link layer. So from the physical layer, the unstructured data link datas, raw data are forwarded to data link layer. So the data link layer is responsible for to establish and terminate a connection between two physically connected devices, which is available in physical layer. And the next one is now you have your data in data link layer. You are going to connect two devices. So in what way we can connect those two devices? So we are in need of network. So that is what the major aim of network layer, which will decide the network layer will decide the route, the path of your data transfer from one node to another node. And the next one layer is transport layer. So now you know what are the devices you are going to use and what data you are going to send, and you can using what device we are going to send the data, and through which network we are going to send the data. So you have selected all those things. And the next work is transport. We are in need of transport to send those data in the network layer. So that is the responsible for transport layer. And then next one is session. So from the name, you can tell that time management. Okay, when the connection has to open, when it has to transmit, and when it has to close. So that is the process of session layer. And the next one is presentation layer. Yes, from the word itself, you can say that in what type of data you are going to present. Whether it is in compressed format or it in text or audio or video, in which way you are going to give the presentation of your data. And finally, the application layers or the user interaction with the real world. So that is application layer. Okay, so we will see all the layers individually in depth. The OSI layer is open system interconnection. It is defined by ISO, International Standardization Organization for Standardization. So for example, if you are working in some standard organization, we have some standard rules. We have to follow that rules and regulations. So if you are studying somewhere in college or university, there must be some rules and regulations that we have to follow it. So that is the standards. Likewise, the ISO standard defined the OSI layer standard for communication purpose. when 1984. This is the 7-layer architecture. We have seen what are the layers there in the OSI layer. In this layers, the first 3 layers, this one, physical link layer, data link layer, network layers are called as hardware layers. Why? Because we used to have different types of devices for connecting purpose will be in these 3 layers, hardware devices. In physical layer, like connection wire, Ethernet cable, pen drive, PC, server, anything it may be. It will be there in the physical layer. And in data link layer, to connect 2 devices, we used to have hub, bridge, those things will be there in data link layer. In the network layer, router will be there for setting the network path. So these 3 layers will be responsible for the devices we are using for connecting purpose. And the next one is transport layer. So whatever the device is here, whatever the messages are here, it will be transmit to the remaining layers using some transport. So that is the heart of OS. And the remaining 3 layers are software layers. Why? Because here we are going to represent different types of software related activities, time management, and the presentation, and finally the application. Here we are going to concentrate on software layers. So let's see about the first layer, that is the physical layer. This is the lowest layer. In physical layer, we are going to connect 2 physical devices. So in what way we can represent the data here? In physical layer, we have to remember the bits. So we are going to transmit these bits from one node to next node. Okay, if it is a bit means it will be in the format, even though you are sending some data, it will be in the format of signal. We have to, that will be in physical layer, it will be converted into zeros and ones. And it will be sent to the next layer, data link layer. In data link layer, these bits will be converted into frames. Okay, so the main thing that we have to remember, the physical layer is the physical connection between 2 devices, many devices. And the data will be represented in the format of bits. If it is bits, and what are the functions that we have to maintain in physical layer? First thing is bit synchronization. So it will provide the synchronization of the bits we are taking it by providing a clock. So this clock will control both the sender and receiver synchronization. And bit rate control. It defines the transmission rate, that is how many number of bits you can send per second. And next one is physical topologies. So in the previous sessions, we have seen about different types of topologies. So in physical layer only, the topologies will be used based on the connection and nodes. The physical topology, the topology will be represented here, whether it is a bus connection, star connection, or mesh connection. Then the fourth one is transmission. That is also we have seen in the session 4. Simplex, half duplex, and full duplex. So these things, bit synchronization, bit rate control, physical topology, and transmission node functions are available in physical layer. So we just can imagine whatever the devices we are using in physical layer, hub, repeater, modem, cables, or physical layer devices. So in physical layer, if you are preparing for exam, what are the main key points we have to remember? If it is a physical layer, it is the physical connection between the devices. And the physical layer, the information will be in the format of bits. Bits will be travel from one node to next node. And it will be in the format of converting in the format of zeros and ones. It will be sent to data link layer. The major point that we have to remember is it is a connection between 2 devices, and the information will be in the format of bits. Since it bits, the major functions are bit synchronization using some clock, bit rate control, the number of pixels per second, topology, how we are going to connect these devices. in which topology we are going to use. Finally, transmission mode. Okay, then we have to remember what are the devices we are going to use in physical layer. And the next thing is data link layer. So as I said, in physical layer, the information will be in the format of bits, and that bits will be sent to the data link layer. So the main function of data link layer is error free from one node to another node. And the next one is in data link layer. Here the data will be in the format of packets. So what are the functions we have to, the data link layer responsible for is framing. So the bits will be converted into frames and then physical addressing. So after converting the bits into frames, we have to set the physical address, MAC address, that is the default address of sender and receiver. Then error control. Error control means we should provide the methods to control the error, to detect and retransmit the damaged or lost frames. Flow control. So flow control must be constant in both sides. If one side flowing it properly and another side the flow control, the data is not flowing properly, means then the communication may be corrupt or lost. Okay, flow control means one by one, without any interruption, the data has to flow from sender to receiver. And access control. Access control means multiple devices will be there in the communication. So the MAC layer, MAC address has to help to determine which device have to control over the remaining channels. So in physical layer, we are mainly concentrating on physical devices, and the information will be bits. In data link layer, the information will be in the format of frame. There we have used switch, modem, and then hub, repeater, cable devices. Here, the network interface card is the data link layer device. Next layer is network layer. So now you have two physical devices. You just imagine that you have two physical devices, two computers. So based on the physical layer, you can take two devices and you are going to send the bit from one PC to another PC. Then we have to set whether it is one PC or whether it is in, it has to follow bus, star or topology, and which transmission mode you want to send, simplex mode, half duplex or full duplex. And after deciding that, we are going into the data link layer. So here the bits which is coming from physical layer will be converted into frames, and we are setting the physical address and we are checking whether the error control methods includes or not, and then the flow controls we are setting it. Finally, the access control, we have to decide which device has the access over the other in that channel. So next thing is network layer. So in network layer, the main work is transmission of data from one host to other located in different networks. So still now we just think about two different types of devices, multiple devices. So when you enter into the network, do two different types of network. Okay, here to send the data into different environment, we have to send the sender and receiver IP address. So in that case, what are the important properties? First is routing. To send your frame, which is coming from data link layer, from one location to another location, we should use the routing. So the network layer protocols will determine which route will be suitable from source to destination. Then next thing, so you have selected the route. Then we should give the logical address. Okay, so based on the logical address, we have to send the message in the given route. So in the data link layer, the data in the format of frame. So in network layer, it will be in the format of segment or package. The network layer devices or routers. And next thing is transport layer. So now you have your network, you know which path you have to flow, and you have your packet in your hand in the format of segment. You have to transmit in the networks. You transport, you have to send that. So even though you have everything, physical devices as like the data link packets and the network path, we need some transportation to transmit that message from one location to another location. So that is what the transport layer. So in the transport layer, your previous segment, that is the packet, will be in the format of segment. We are going to, this layer is mainly responsible for end-to-end delivery of message. Here, how the process is going. At the center side, the transport layer will receive the data from the previous layer, that is the upper layer, and it performs some segmentation, and it will implement flow and error control mechanism as like a data link layer. And it will add the address, source and destination port numbers. So based on the source and destination port numbers only, the data can be transmitted. And in the receiver side, the receiver layer will read the port number from its header and it forward the data to the next layer. And the functions are segmentation reassembly and service point address. Here we have two things: connection oriented, connectionless. Connection oriented means we have to establish the connection, we have to transfer the data and terminate the connection. Connectionless means we can transmit in universal way. Okay, we don't need to establish the connection, terminate the connection. And next layer is session. So now you are going to transmit your data using some transportation methods. You are going to travel. Okay, that message going to travel. So in that time, we have to set the session, in which time it has to go, and through which transportation. So what is the time when it has to start, how fast it has to go. Okay, so that is the session layer. Session establishment, maintenance, and termination. And the session synchronizations also. Here we will check the checkpoints based on the synchronization. And the dialog control will be there for time maintenance. The session can be allowed to system to start the communication in half duplex or full duplex mode. Okay. Then next one is presentation layer. So you are transmitted your data in the previous layers and you have set the time also. After completing that, you have to present your message to the receiver side. So that is the layer, presentation layer, which is called as translation layer. So here the data will be encrypted using some methods. It will be translated into some other method. So that we are using encryption and decryption method. And for sometimes we are using the compression. So in the sender side, we are reducing the number of bits. And to the receiver side, again, we are decompress the original message. Finally, the seventh layer is the application layer. That is the user-defined layer. So here the final application will be used like a Google, Browse, Skype, or LinkedIn. Likewise, in the final user-friendly applications, websites, or the application layer representation. Okay, so here you can see the example of application layers, mail services, directory services. So those things are application layer. So these are the 7 layers which is available in the OSI layer. So this is just a comparison. Okay, physical layer means physical connection. The data will be in the format of bits. We are using the devices, hub, repeater, modem, cables, normal things to just to connect two devices, two PC. We are not sending any information. We are just going to connect two devices. So here your information will be in the format of bits. Okay, and the next data link layer, here node to node delivery. Your message information will be, data will be in the format of frame. We are using switch and bridge here. And in the network layer, it will be in the format of segments. Packets, we will use the packets, data packets. The device is a router. And transport layer. So these things are hardware layer. This one is heart of OS. That's the transport layer. Segments will be there. We will use firewall. And finally, the above 3 layers are session, presentation, application. These are the software layers. So here we are not going to use any devices. So message will be there. We have to set the gateway. And finally, in presentation also, the same message will be there. We will manipulate the data, and we will present in some other data format. And finally, application layer also message. Here you can see the example of OSI layers. So actual hardware will be there in physical layer. Connections, different types of connections, wires, those things. Data link layer, we are going to transmit the package. That is switch, link to link delivery. And network layer, in network layer, main thing is path or route, router. This one is end-to-end delivery. In transport layer, application to application. And session layer, session creation. If it is a Facebook, when you are entering that, you can use that Facebook. So likewise, the session, based on the session management, we can, if the receiver opening the Facebook, at that time the message will be received. So that is session layer, time management. Finally, the presentation, the format conversion, encryption, and decompression. The application layer, here we are using the Google final user friendly services. Okay, that is application layer. So here you can see that the example I'll tell you in the layer 1, physical layer, you just take the story. The Arab king wants to send a message to French king. Okay, so we just want to connect the message from Arab kings to French king. So in the physical layer, we have to transmit that message, that Arab king's message to French king. So for that, we are using some physical devices. Directly, the messages cannot send by Arab king to French king, right? So some other mediators will be there to take your message to French king. So that is the physical layer work. Okay, some people will be there physically and some transportation methods also we will have. So after you deciding the people from Arab country and the data will be given to them and they will check and they should ensure the delivery of the letter by including the address and everything. Okay, here even though the drivers, we are giving the letters to driver, the drivers are not supposed to deliver the letter directly to the French palace. Okay, so it has to divide into multiple works. So in between that, we had many works are there, right? So after taking the data's letter, the next thing is network layer. So in the network layer, they will write the address in which network the data has to send, and they will plan the route that should be followed. So that is the work of network layer. So now the message is in the network layer phase. Okay, and the next layer is transport layer. So after deciding the address, that we will give the data into transport layer. In the transport layer, the segmentation of letters, even many letters will come here using that transportation by car, truck, or anything else. The letters will be segment and it will be the numbering. Based on the numbers, the next level, it will move on to the next level. The secretary will set the session, create a session, which session we can transmit the message. So the secretary of the Arab king will set the session by discussing with the secretary of French king. That is the session layers. So after setting the time, the messages will be sent to the presentation layer because the message is in the format of Arab king's language. So in the presentation, they will convert that language into French king's language. Then only he can understand. So that is what the session layer. Okay, presentation layer. So after presenting it, finally it will be reached to the application layer. Here the French king can read the original message. Okay, so that is what the example of OSI layers. So thank you. In the next session, we are going to see about the packet tracer environment and how to use the packet tracer for networking experiment. Thank you.